percentage point to 2.3% from 2.2%.
All right, Trade Pros, we are live on today's midday afternoon or midday update. My name is Mark from TRADEPRO Academy, coming at you guys from our headquarters here in Toronto, Ontario, on this lovely day of Monday, August 26th, 2019. Guys, this is our last week of August trading before we have the big Labor Day weekend, and we have the usual, most of the liquidity from the trading desks around the world. A lot of those traders are going to be returning back from vacation after this weekend. On Tuesday, the Tuesday after Labor Day weekend, we tend to see a injection of volatility back in the markets. Not to say that we haven't had some, but the typical resumption of volatility happens after Labor Day weekend. So we're definitely looking forward to that. Definitely looking forward to some more movement in the markets. We did have some today, but it's been a little bit of a tougher day to trade these equities. Crude has been okay. Equities have been a little bit tougher to trade just because there's been a lack of direction on them. And that's basically what I got. So first things first, if this is your first time watching, we'll take a quick look at some of the drivers during the US session, what we saw on that. Then we'll look at any remaining news announcements scheduled for the remainder of the session. And then we jump onto the charts for potential levels that we can look to target into the latter half of today's session. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Georgie covered a bunch of the overnight drivers in the morning update. As far as the US session, we did have a couple of squawks come through. We had President Trump mentioning that he had calls with China at the highest levels, not aware of Chinese officials disputing trade calls. This is from the G7 conference. We also had French President Macron mention that we've made progress on a number of subjects. This was the joint press conference with President Trump that was recently aired. As well, in this morning session, Georgie covered really the economic events that came out with the core durable goods orders out of the States. And that's really all that we had on the agenda. We had FOMC member Bullard speaking at 10 a.m., but I don't really see any notes here from that. And that's pretty much it, guys. Not much on the agenda here. Not much on the agenda as far as economic releases. Just remember, we still have the G7 meetings all day, except that's over in Europe. So that's likely concluding. And that's basically all that we have as far as economic announcements to look forward to for the remainder of today's session. So with that being said, I'll just have a squawk coming through here. That being said, let me jump off of my camera, jump onto the charts here, show you guys what's going on. All right, so there is our charts, and first things first, we'll take a look at the quote board. Good afternoon, George. First things first, look at the quote board. EPU, 1.32 million contracts traded, pretty good volume. However, direction has been relatively lackluster on today's session. And that's kind of what you will see on these charts once we get to them. Crude oil. Crude oil, we have pretty good contract size. Again, volume is starting to pick back up. You guys will notice last week we were around 400 to 430, coming back into our regular 550 to 600,000 contracts by this time of day. So that's looking pretty good. Crude honestly looking like the better market to trade today. SPUs, a little bit indecisive. They're kind of in the middle of nowhere, so you can argue longs, you can argue shorts, and when that's the case, it's typically better to stay away. I wish I knew that earlier today. I wouldn't have got myself into some trouble to start off the session, but we're looking okay now. Made a pretty good recovery so far. So that's what we got on these quote boards. Volume showing you good volume. Daily change percentage showing you relatively unchanged. Crude is just sitting right above its previous day close. Overnight, that was a pretty big change. Throughout today's session, we've been selling off. And so we are just above the previous day close at the moment, which was at 53.98. And SPU's previous day close was the 52 halves. You can see that was on Friday's session. We gapped down overnight, made a bit of a run, and now, it was a bit of a downside. We did catch a bit of a gap. So we are trying to support at this moment, but if that US VWAP, or rather if that Globex VWAP gives we'll likely get another press back down to the downside. So that's kind of all that we're watching for at this moment. Quote board is done. Let's take a look over at our pivot charts. So the pivot charts kind of paint the picture that these ones up here don't. These are 1 hour 1 hour bar charts, and so they offer us a bit of a better insight into the previous days of action. You can see over the last little bit, we did have a run up in crude up into those 57s basically, sold off from there, and from there we've kind of been making lower lows, lower highs. You can argue we've run up into R1 this morning. However, the current trend is showing lower lows, lower highs. That just looks like it was a rotation back into previous consolidation, which is a potential lower high as well. So at this point, we're below the pivot. Pivot is at 54.25. If we can close below the pivot on this candle, on this 1 hour candle, so at 1 p.m. Eastern, if we get that close back below there, I could see us trying to press back down into these 53 halves, maybe into the S1s, into the 52.90s here on the pit fade around 2:30 p.m. Eastern. All right, so that's what we're seeing on crude. SPU's kind of a similar, story. We did make some previous lows here, did run up, rotate off, rotate off. This is what we were saying last week. This was a level where if the sellers are going to defend it, this is where they're going to have to do. You can see one sell-off, two sell-off, little third sell-off, fourth return, big sell-off, right? So now we're kind of just rotating into the pivot. This is kind of going to be important for us because we did get below those previous lows. Right, so on this rotation up, it's important to see, can the bulls get this thing back over these 40s, or does that pivot hold as resistance, and do we press back down towards S1, towards that $2,800 mark, which may be the case. You guys can see pivot has been holding as pretty good resistance on today's session. We've had a lot of rotations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, almost 10 hours of rotations right around that pivot. So you guys can see just from this chart here, it hasn't been very much of a moving session so far, at least for the US traders. Majority of this run up was made during Globex hours. We'll just call it GBX, Globex hours, and the US traders woke up and have been trading a bunch of chop, which is not the most fun. But typically what happens when you get consolidation, the longer the market consolidates, the bigger the breakout tends to be. And so whether it goes to the upside or the downside, to be determined. But as it stands with the technicals, this is just looking like a lower high potential. And so long as that pivot remains resistance around these 75 halves, I'll be looking for another rotation back down into those 2800s. The only thing that would really press me off of something like that, if Trump comes out and mentions that we've made a deal with China, or we get a squawk that comes in with regards to an update from China-US trade wars, and it's a optimistic update, the market is likely going to rally on that. So under those kinds of pretexts, I would anticipate a breakout to the upside. However, as the status quo remains, as these tariffs or rather Friday's announcement, Trump hasn't walked back on that announcement. So as long as that remains the status quo as it stands, the increase on those tariffs into September and into December still stands. So as that remains the status quo, I'm kind of leaning more so towards the downside opening up than the upside. But that being said, that's why it's super important to have a squawk. You guys hear the squawk in the background now. And he's just mentioning on Brexit. But that's the importance of having a new squawk. If anything hits the wires, we are the first to hear it, and we are the first to be able to make trading decisions based off of that. So if you guys don't really know the importance of the new squawk, one such example would be to watch our YouTube video from this weekend. We have a live clip in there it's about 28 minutes or so from Friday's trading session, and we clipped the part where Trump came in and he mentioned these tariffs, and he mentioned that U.S. companies should start looking for alternatives to China, and you'll see how the markets react, and you'll see how the team took advantage of that. So if you don't understand the importance of a new squawk, especially as a day trader, I highly recommend you check out that video. All right, so that's what we got on there as far as our charts are concerned. Pivots, the pivots are showing us downside looking like the right side for both crude and for the SPUs. Again, contingent on US-China trade developments. If nothing comes in the wires, I'm expecting more downside. If something comes in with optimistic outlook, then we might see some further upside. All right, that's what I'm seeing there. Let's jump onto the actual tick charts here. So what you will see, crude made quite a lovely move overnight. Nice little gap down to start the session, right, onto Sunday. Let me just make this a little bit bigger here. All right, so we gapped down to start the session. That was the previous day close. That was your 53.08. We're looking to fill that gap to the downside now. All right, so usually what happens when we gap down markets, I don't want to give you a percentage, but I would say around 3/4 of the time, if you get a gap, that gap will usually get filled. We saw that gap get filled pretty quickly into London Open around 3 a.m. Eastern time. And we climbed up into that overnight high of 55.20s. We opened at 9 a.m., dipped into the previous day high, rotated back up to the overnight high, found some resistance, and sold off from there back below that previous day high. That's a structure break. The next rotation up, we want to see that hold the lower high. Came back down, second time around, held that lower high, and we broke down. And so now we are back below the Globex View app. This is your average price throughout the Globex session and into the US session. So this is kind of an overlap. It calculates, starts climbing or starts calculating based on the open here, and it's the average overnight. So you guys can see between Globex and the US session, we're below the volume weighted average. We did test it. If we were going to continue higher, this is the level where we should have done so. What we did instead is broke below it, rotated 1, 2, 3 rotations back into previous lows, bunch of rotations there. Now we're kind of selling off. All right, so as it stands, next support level right around these 53.80s. What I'd be watching for, let me make this a little bit thinner now. What I'd be watching for from here is simply rotations back up into the level that had held, right? That was a little consolidation that caused that breakdown. Now what you want to see a rotation back up into these 54.20s to the 54.30s. Look for it to hold some resistance up here and then look to press it back down into these 53.80s. All right, that's what we're seeing on crude. On the SPOOs, this was a SPOOs this morning, and we're kind of looking for a pullback into the view app, which is what we got. Just looking out at it this way, we've got a little bit of work for the buyers to do to really get this thing back on the long side. Just get this thing a little bit neater here for you guys. So what you'll see, that was Friday's close, gap down, covered that gap. Here we did climb, looking quite similar to crude. All right, guys, so you can see we did climb, made an overnight high around these 88 halves. What's different here than what we saw from crude is crude made a dip off its overnight highs, rotated back up to them, and then sold off. SPOOs didn't quite do that. SPOOs haven't retested their overnight high just yet. You can see we did pull off of it. This line pretty much here is where the cash session starts. All right, so we did have some prior resistance turned into support here. We saw a couple of rotations. Ultimately, we got back up into these 28.80s. Kind of rotated under from there, and the US session, you guys can see, has been quite choppy. We were above the open, below the open, back above the open, back below it, back to it, back below it. Now we're right back at it, and that's kind of been the way the session has been going. So yeah, you can argue, bulls are showing some control right here. You can see these dips into the view app. We started to see volume starting to increase on that front, so somebody was definitely coming in and supporting that price action. So we had that rotation, we've come up, now we're kind of rotating here. I'm still not convinced the bull side is in. I'm seeing a potential rotation back up into our current session high around these 80s as potential resistance, and into the overnight highs as potential resistance. If we get back above these overnight highs, then you could start looking for a climb back up into the 2900s. However, as it stands, I'm still seeing lower lows and lower highs on this market. And I'm just seeing this last rotation as a counter trend rotation, right? So downside all the way. This is just looking like the upside, likely going to consolidate. If we're going to continue lower, we should see that view app crack, rotate, and then look to press back below. So whether that happens here, whether that happens at the 80s or at the overnight high, those are kind of the levels I'll be watching for and back above that, that's when I'd start looking to take on long positions. All right, that's what we got on the charts. I've got a couple of chat questions here, so let me address those. There's only 3 of you guys participating in the chat, and I see there's around 27 watching. What's going on, guys? Make sure to be vocal with this. You don't often get a chance to speak to somebody that does this on a daily basis. So if you guys do have any questions, do not be shy. Say hello. Feels like I'm talking to myself sometimes. So thank you, George, for saying hello. Hello, Slim Jim. Thank you for dropping in and watching. Thank you for your time. Mayank Jane, how can someone join and benefit from TPA if they work full-time during the day? Mayank, that is a great question. Full-time during the day, it kind of really depends on where you are located. For our traders that are in the Eastern time zone, such as ourselves, a lot of the traders that do work full-time, what they do is they either schedule an hour or 2 in the mornings to be able to participate in these webinars, or what they will often do is we have a evening trading course, right? So if you're in the Eastern time zone, you can benefit from that. So one of the benefits of futures is that they are open almost 24 hours. We just posted a video this weekend where I kind of discussed their trading hours, how that looks like on a week over week basis. So almost 24 hours. And one of the misconceptions with day trading is that you have to be trading during the day. That is an incorrect. That's why it's called a misconception. It is incorrect for the reason that day trading simply means that you're opening and closing the positions within the session, right? So for the futures, you do have basically you have 1 hour of the day. Let me switch back to the camera here for a second. So it looks like I'm talking directly to you. All right. So what happens is basically each afternoon for equities close from 4:15 to 4:30, and then they close again from 5 to 6 p.m. All right. So anytime the 24 hours before or after that. All right, you're in California. That's awesome. All right, so Mayank, for the West Coast traders, I'm honestly jealous of you guys because of your location, because of your hours. We have a lot of West Coast traders in the room, in our community, and what a lot of the West Coast traders do is because you guys are 3 hours back, more or less. You mentioned California, so you should be 3 hours back from Eastern time, and what that means is that 9 a.m. will be around 6 a.m. For you guys, right? So unless you're starting your work at 6 a.m., if you start the typical 9 to 5, if you're in California, you can get in there. You can get in the first 2 hours of the session, which is what we generally trade, 9:30 a.m. till around 11:30, 12 is kind of the tail end of that. So if you're in California, we do trade every morning between 6 a.m. Your time to around 8:30, 9 a.m., right? So right around the time that you'd be starting work. So because of your location, even though you have a full-time job, if you can commit to waking up, a couple hours ahead of your work day, then you can by all means make it work and you can catch the day trading portion of it. If not, you can always use swing trading in the evenings. So we do also have a London room open, which is open at 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. Eastern time. So again, just do that 3 hours back. That's what you would have on there. So there's a lot of options. You don't necessarily need to day trade during, our normal hours. That is the best time to trade because the volume and the volatility from European traders and US traders, it's kind of an overlap. So you're getting US traders coming into the market, opening up their positions, and you're getting European traders closing out their positions as, their part of the session is closing off at around 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Swing trading is something that can work. Swing trading is more of a passive invest or passive trading strategy, right? So if you're looking to make cash flow, consistent cash flow out of the markets, you're more likely going to have success with day trading futures. However, if you prefer to do it more passively and your focus is not so much cash flow, it's more building passive wealth, then swing trading will work by all means. It's just going to take a little bit longer, and due to the what is it called? Due to the not profitability, due to the probabilities right? And your edge, if you think about it, with day trades, you can take anywhere from 5 to 10 trades in a session. Whereas with swing trading, you're probably going to take 5 to 10 trades in a month, right? So your edge as a day trader, you have a lot more opportunity for that edge to present itself if you're taking 5, 10 trades a day, which comes out to 200 to 250 a month. Whereas you're swing trading, you're taking 5 to 10 trades a month, right? So your your profit curve, if you will, is going to be a little bit more inconsistent as a swing trader. So that's the main difference. With day trading, you have more trades. Your edge has a better probability of working out because you're taking more trades, right? So that's what gives you the consistent cash flow. With swing trading, because it's not as active, you don't have as many trades in a month, right? Your edge might not work out. So whereas day traders, they'll often have, they'll often finish the month green. They'll have a couple of days within each week that are red. Swing traders can have a complete month red, and then the next month they can hit 20% in a single month, right? So it's really what you want to do with it. We often prescribe, if you don't have that much time to go with it, to start with swing trading, at least learn the foundations, because with day trading, it's basically swing trading on steroids. So whereas with swing trading, you can kind of look at it, maybe 1 hour a day. You can prepare yourself in the afternoons. Once the market opens, you can see where the market's at, set in an order or two here, and just manage that throughout the week. With day trading, you're going to be a little bit more involved with it, up to 2 hours, 2 hours on the session, which is not that bad. But in general, you're going to find more, not to say you're going to find more success, but it's going to be a little bit easier as a day trader, because you can be a great swing trader, not necessarily a great day trader, but if you're a good day trader, you can become a great swing trader, because with day trading, you can really get into the best parts of price, where prices are turning, and then you can turn that into a swing trade, right? So that's kind of what we try to do here. Is we'll start the trades off as day trades, and if it's got room to run, we'll look to extend that into a swing trade. So that's what George did on Friday. He entered a gold position as a day trade, and then we had that Trump news drop, and as a result, prices kind of pressed higher. So he was able to take that from a day trade and move it into, extend it, his profit into a swing trade. All right, so either or works. Whether you're coming as a swing trader into day trading or day trading into swing trading, I think the switch from day trader to swing trader is a little bit easier, just because you're used to things happening so quickly. And as a swing trader, it may take you, an hour to qualify a trade that you're looking to set up, whereas with day trading, you can qualify that within a couple of seconds. All right, so if you're someone that kind of stumbles under pressure, start off with swing trading and then migrate into day trading. If you have no problem with pressure, making quick decisions, then day trading would be a good place to start. My pleasure, Mayank, my pleasure. Hello, William. Nathan, do you trade individual securities based on the index trends? Nathan, partially. So we don't trade individual securities outright. What we do is we trade them via options. So a majority of what we do here, our bread and butter is really day trading futures contracts. So we like to trade, S&P 500, crude oil, and what's it called? NASDAQ. We don't really trade Russell as actively, or the Dow, but we still keep an eye on them, and then gold. So those are the main ones. If we do see a position that we like based on what we're seeing in the indexes, then we'll take plays via options on either the ETFs. I think we had I don't run the options one. Vic does that one, but I believe he had a IWM put last week, and so he'll basically look at what's happening via the futures and then look for potential trades in individual securities based on what's happening in the overall markets. All right, so I think that's kind of the way it should be doing that, right? And you kind of always want to keep an eye on the overall index, because if the overall indexes are being weighed down by heavy selling pressure, even an individual stock is likely going to feel that pressure, even though it's the individual name. So if you're looking to take a long swing trade, ideally the indexes are supporting that. The indexes are either bouncing, pressing higher with good volume, something like that. You always kind of, even if you're looking at individual stocks, you kind of want to get an idea of what their sectors are doing and what the overall markets are doing, right? So that'll add confluence to the positions. If you're looking for a long and you're seeing that the actual stock market itself is bouncing, and then you're seeing that the sector that that individual name is as well is showing strength, then you can look to take that. And then if you want to take it a bit further, you follow the sector, you follow the leaders and the laggards in the sector, and then you'll basically look to take along on the laggard, not the leader, but you'll use the leader as your confluence, right? So you pick it up, you take along if you're seeing the laggard within the sector going, and if the leader starts to pull off of his highs, at that point you can look to disqualify that long position. All right, so we're real big fans of correlations here. Correlations really add confluence to your trades. We use correlation charts every day for our trading, whether it's just the line charts or the actual assets on them. Myself personally, I have a screen with all of the indexes, a bunch of the correlatory assets such as gold, such as yen, etc., that I would keep an eye on throughout the session. All right, Slim Jim, hello from Alaska. Hello, hello. Hopefully you're keeping warm out there. I know there's a lot of stereotypes that Alaska's cool all year long. Awesome. So that being said, we've taken a look at these SPOOs. We've taken a look at crude. Let's just jump in there. Somebody mentioned there's been a bit of a bounce. That was George. Yeah, George, looks like we have caught a bit of a bounce. But the plan doesn't change just because the market bounced. We were looking for this, and this is kind of where I am expecting a little bit of sell pressure to start coming in, to kind of confirm my idea. It does not necessarily mean that I'm looking for a trade, but what you have seen is this was a nice consolidation into the Globex during Globex, right? This was around 439. You got a little bit of a pop from that level, and then we sold off, rotated up into it here, sold off, right? Another rotation up into that level, sold off. Another one, just poked our heads above it. That led to the VWAP bounce, right? So now we're right back up in that area. This is why patience is so important, right back into that area. This is where sellers should come in. Consolidation, like I said, we held it here, we held it here, we held it here. Now we're coming back, and we've had our first 10 tick kind of little black candle here. If you look at the volume's picking up. So there is some selling pressure coming in, and that's to be expected, right? So now what you'd be watching for is if you focus on this little structure here, what you will see, make this thing a little bit smaller again. Here it is. What you will see is that we had some rotations, right? So these are all just rotations, 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 right? So now as we come into this level, it could just dip down here, but ideally what we see is we see some more rotations, 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 those rotations, and then we look to continue lower. All right, that's kind of what I'm watching for here for a potential fade. Not to say that it's going to go down. It can just rip straight up. I'm seeing right here, if you guys will notice this red line that's kind of flashing intermittently, that is offers. All right, so we do have a feature on our software. If I switch back to my actual charts, I'll give you guys a sneak peek here just because I'm feeling good today. Let me just see what you guys are seeing here. All right, so you guys are seeing that one. So let me move this sucker up. All right, so this is what our actual trading screen looks like. All right, so a little bit different than what you're seeing on the actual YouTube, but what I am seeing here is this yellow line. Hold on one sec. Here we are. All right, so right at the 2890s, we've got around 600 or so. 600 offers sitting at the 2890s. All right, so that's just above where price is right now. If you guys will see, there it is, 2890. So that's where the 600 are sitting. There are 600 of those guys sitting up there. There it is. So 600 around there, and then we've got another bunch of offers sitting right around these 80s, and there are around 560 of them or so. All right, so what we just saw was a pretty aggressive pump higher. All right, you guys will see these are buying balances. This just shows me aggressive market buying. All right, so From here, what would we be looking for? Well, we had a bunch of aggressive buying, all right, as you guys can see here, right? So we broke over those previous highs, made a run up. We've come into a level where I'm seeing potential selling, and on the chart here, this is how we use order flow. You guys are seeing sellers are starting to step into the market a little bit aggressively. All right, so there's going to be a pretty big battle between the sellers and the buyers right around this level here, around these 74s, 73 halves. From there, what we'd be looking for if we're going to get short is we're seeing these sellers coming in. Just want to see another rotation back up into these, call them 78 halves to 77 halves, kind of where all these point of controls happen, these sell imbalances happen. If we can get down in here, rotate up into these 77 halves, 78s, might have a level where we can potentially short from. All right, so that's kind of how we use order flow. That's how we use tick charts. This is my correlation charts. As I mentioned, we look at correlations all the time. And then I've also got a chart of the Dow right down here as one of my other correlatory markets. All right, so that's what it kind of looks like on our actual screen. Granted, I do have 4 other monitors that you guys do not see. So this is only one such display, but that's essentially what it looks like. All right, so I'll move this guy back down. This is my other chart with the 4 other markets. So these are our equity markets. This is where we take a look at how the correlatory markets are going. You know, ideally we want to see Dow, NASDAQ, and Russell into support if we're looking to get longs, and vice versa if we're looking to get short. We want to see them at resistance in order to, to potentially catch some trades, add some confluence to our idea. All right, so that's what we got on there. Let me answer some of the questions since you guys are getting a little bit more interactive now, which I love to see. There's a little bit more of you watching too. Good afternoon, Miguel from Costa Rica. Mario from Honduras, welcome. Actually, Mario, I only know one person that's from the Honduras. You will be number 2 now. George, yeah, this is on Sierra chart. What number? D777. Okay. Do you trade the London market, Globex, and if so, what instruments? And do you trade bonds or spreads on bonds in the cash market? So D77, can you just let me know what your name is? So I'm not quoting a number, but we'll just call you D for now. We do trade the London market. Our team trades. We have one trader out in Hawaii that leads that, 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. Eastern time. That's the London market. Globex, we don't have any rooms per se for Globex, but we do have some of the members in our community. They do have an elite trade room, which they can. Dermot, awesome. So Dermot, yeah, we do have a London market room. We have one for the US Cash Open. Not necessarily something for the Globex. GT. Not necessarily something for the Globex session, but like I said, we do have a pretty global community of traders, and just because we're not in there doesn't mean that those rooms aren't active. So we do have traders in there during the Globex sessions. We do have a couple of West Coast traders that like to check that out. A couple of East Coast traders as well that work full-time during the morning that pop in there and trade with each other during Globex hours. As far as instruments that we trade, we primarily trade the U.S. equity index futures. Your SPOOs, your NASDAQ, Russell, Dow, primarily the SPOOs though. We use NASDAQ, Dow, and Russell more so as correlations. We also trade crude oil on a daily basis. We've got a great moderator, Steven, from Atlanta, has been trading futures since '87, longer than I've been around, and he does really well. So we've got that, and we also trade gold, not as actively, but if there's good opportunities, then we'll take a look at it. As mentioned, last couple of weeks have been pretty good opportunities, and so yeah, as far as bonds, we don't really trade bonds or spreads on the bonds. We'll keep an eye on bonds as our inverse correlations. I believe we had one person in the room, Alan, that was trading bonds pretty well, the ZB futures, but as far as us actually keeping a focused eye on those and making trades, not too often. All right, JT, that sounds like something Boxy would say. I imagine that's what you were going for. Can't give, you'll have to get the credit card out for that one. And that looks to be all of the questions in there. So if there's no other questions, I'll leave it for another minute or so. If you guys have any other questions, feeling in a good mood, So if you guys have anything, please do let me know. Anything about us, Trade Pro Academy, anything like that. All right, so I'll leave this open for another minute or so. I'm going to grab a quick coffee behind me, as you guys can see right over there. And when I come back, if there's no new questions, then I'm going to do a sign off, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, so I'm going to get up for that coffee break. For those of you watching and listening, if you have any questions, please feel free to throw those in there, and I'll be back in about a minute or so. And once I'm back, if there's no other questions, that's unfortunate. If there are, we'll take care of those, and then we'll sign off for you guys. All right, take care. All right, guys, I'm back, and there's no new questions. So I don't know if you guys are shy or not, but gave you guys the opportunity to ask. And if you don't want to take that, that's okay. All right, so that's going to be a wrap from me. We are seeing a bit of selling pressure coming into these markets, and kind of to be expected. That's what we were mentioning. We were at a level where we would anticipate sellers to start coming in. All right, so whether they follow through or not, that's to be determined, but watch for any rotations back up into those 80s or so, and see if you've got any selling pressure coming in. If you do see that, you can look to pounce on it. If not, we'll likely get some upside, but as it stands, I think we have a little bit more of downside that we can get through. All right, so that's going to be me for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. A little bit on the longer end, but I am feeling pretty good, and wanted to get you guys a little bit of extra value out of today's update. All right, so if not in the room, then we will see you back on here tomorrow morning. George covers our updates at 9 a.m. He covers the overnight drivers. If you guys haven't had a chance to check that out, make sure to watch the replay on our channel. And I do these at 12 p.m. So if you missed the morning one, I'm on here during 12 p.m. Get you guys an update for the latter end of the session. And that's basically it. So if you guys enjoy this, please do me one quick favor. If you do enjoy these, please make sure to hit that like button. Help us out with the YouTube algorithm. And on top of that, if you guys are a little bit too shy to ask in the interactive chat, please do post any questions you might have about us, about trading, anything in general. Please post that in the comments section, and I'll make sure to reply to those before I head out today. All right, guys, so that's going to be a final sign off. Good luck and good trading if you will be trading into the remainder of today's session. Remember to stay safe out there. Remember to keep a new squawk handy. Again, if you haven't seen the importance of having a new squawk, please make sure to check out that YouTube video from this weekend, the live trading example. It also gives you guys a really, really good insight into what the trading room actually looks like. So for those of you that are kind of on the sidelines, not necessarily sure that you want to join because you don't know what the environment looks like, that is a great little clip for you guys to check out. All right. So final sign off. Good luck. Good trading. Take care, guys. And now I've got to find the logout and get on out of here. Ooh, one last thing I forgot to post now that I'm on this log off stages is our Trade Pro Performance Index. So I was yapping a little bit too much, but here's the final bit of our update. Can't sign off without doing this because this is a testament to our team. So what this is our Trade Pro Performance Index. Do not get this misconstrued for individual percentage returns on the account. That's not what this is. What this is simply an indication of how our team is doing on a daily basis. And today we did pretty well. You know, this is right around on average. We had around 65% of the room finish the session green when we signed off around 11:30, 12 p.m. Eastern, or 11:30 a.m., 12 p.m. Eastern time. All right, so up 44.83%, flat just under 21, and just under 35 were down for the session. All right, so what that means is if you're in the positive section, that means you did not lose money or you made money on the session. All right, that's where you get the 65% from, and that's what it's showing you. This is not voted on by our traders here. I don't get to vote on this. George doesn't get to vote on this. Vic doesn't get to vote, nor does Steven. All right, this is all our community. These are traders just like yourselves that have looked for a place to find home, that have found a place to find or to call home, and they're just killing it. All right, so we're going to look to close out the remainder of this month strong. Like I said, we've got a couple of days left. How much days? Whoops, sorry, shouldn't be showing that. Couple days left in here, another 5 days or so until the weekend. And once we get into September, that is when the fun is really going to start. So if you guys haven't yet, I'd highly encourage you guys to sign up. You do have a 14-day, 100% money back guarantee. We only work with you if you guys think the fit is right. If you sign up, you don't think it's a good fit, that's completely fine. You can ask for your money back within those 14 business days. All right, guys. So that's going to be a wrap. Hello, Kalechi. Happy to see you come in here. Unfortunately, we're looking to sign off. All right, so that's what we got. That is a final update there. And now for real, good luck and good trading. Until tomorrow, guys. Take care. And end stream.